pjnet.tv. It's time. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast. And we have a first-time guest standing by in our green room with two incredible stories, or maybe more, honest. And we have our chat room just waiting to hear our guests, see our guests. And we're streaming and we're recording. We'll count it down to Studio 8, starting now. Well, good evening and welcome to pjnet.tv. I'm your host, Coach Prasick, and we provide a platform for everyday Christians to share their walk with Christ right here. And that makes me happy, and we hope it's pleasing to the Lord as well. It's always special to have a first-time guest, as we have tonight. Our 200, I think I'll have to go count it. Correct me if I'm wrong, or I'll correct myself later if I'm wrong. But Teresa will be our 257th first-time guest. And she comes to us all the way from the great state of Oregon, or at least for now. But tonight, get ready to take a journey. Teresa, you have been on a journey that few people will ever take, let alone complete. But for the audience's benefit, this was Teresa 200 pounds ago. Now, Teresa, this was a journey.
Very much so. Mm-hmm. Huge journey.
How long ago was that when you began?
That picture was taken probably 3 years ago, and I was 425 pounds at that time. And then I entered a weight loss program in November of 2019 to get bariatric surgery. And I got my surgery on June 5th of 2020. And from November of 2019 till now, I've lost 200 pounds.
Now, Teresa, take us back.
I needed the surgery because I was very close to going on to insulin instead of metformin, and I was almost in a wheelchair.
Okay. So obviously you knew.
I knew.
You had known for a long time, is my guess, that you needed to deal with this.
Yes.
And for a long time you didn't.
No.
So was it the nagging of your close friends that brought you to the conclusion that maybe, you ought to get started?
No.
Then what was it?
The nagging is what kept me eating. It kept me in my food addiction. It kept me wanting to stay inside my comfort box and walls where I felt safe, felt invisible, felt ignored, felt safe. And I chose to gain weight because of abuse. So being asked to lose the weight meant being vulnerable. To me, that meant not being safe. To me, that meant being seen. And that was more scary than being overweight and possibly dying. But what turned it around for me was the fact that, one, I became diabetic. That was scary alone. And then to be told, if you don't lose the weight, you're going to be in a wheelchair, because I had bone-on-bone arthritis in my right knee that was so severe that I could barely walk anymore. It was hard to even take a step. I was close to having to go on insulin shots, which I did not want to do. And I was looking at probably losing my job because I could no longer perform my job. But
now, oddly, you were in the healthcare industry, right?
Yes. Yep. I worked in homes for the developmentally disabled adults. And so I had to be able to pass OIS and CPR and first aid. And I knew I was not going to be able to pass those at my weight because I couldn't get on the floor and on my knees to perform CPR. So I knew I wouldn't pass, and you don't pass, you don't have a job. But I will tell you, the turning point of everything happened in 2018. I stopped listening to God. I wanted to get into management in the group home industry so badly that I was determined to prove everyone wrong. Nobody believed that an overweight woman in her 50s who was an extreme introvert could ever manage a home. wrong personality. You're not outgoing enough. You're too quiet. You're too old. You're too overweight. So I was determined to prove everybody wrong, and I decided to start applying for the management position in a couple of different homes. God clearly told me no, 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 no. And I said, yes, 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 I'm going to anyway. Well, I applied for the fifth time, 5 tries. My employer finally said yes. I know now it wasn't because they believed I could do the job. I think they were tired of me applying and they were ready to prove that I couldn't do the job,
Mm-hmm. Set you
And
up to fail.
yes, pretty much. But I didn't fail in a sense of I exceeded expectations in several areas, except for the physical part. I couldn't cover shifts. And that's because physically I couldn't do the job anymore. My weight and my arthritis was really preventing me from doing the job. But God has an awesome sense of humor. I love his sense of humor. I took a client to her physical therapy appointment, and she's in a wheelchair. When I pulled into the physical therapy appointment place, God directed me to park down in another parking space. Well, I'm thinking he wants me to park in that handicap space that's down there on that incline, partway sideways. And I'm not parking down there because I am not going to push this wheelchair client partway up a hill to her appointment. Not doing it, God. So I'm going to park here in the loading zone, which I'm allowed to park in because I am loading and unloading a client. So I'm going to park in the loading zone. And all God said to me when I pulled into that spot is, you're going to get hurt. That's all he said to me. Very clear, loud and clear. So I took my client into her appointment. We had her physical therapy appointment. I started loading her back up into the wheelchair van. I got her into the van, the ramp closed, and I went to walk around the back of the van so I could do the other 2 tie downs for her wheelchair. Well, I forgot that there was a speed bump that drifted into the parking space. I tripped over the speed bump and fell. Severely dislocated my left elbow. I've got the surgery scars to prove it. And so that put me out of commission. That got my attention. And after I was on workman's comp and I had slowed down and my ambitions had been tabled, I started listening to God. And he was like, I told you not to apply for the job. And you did anyway. And this is what happens when you don't listen. I had to get your attention. Well, I know God's hand was in that fall because the way I tripped, I should have landed on my right arm. Instead, I landed on my left arm. I'm right-handed. I should have smacked my head on the pavement a lot harder than I did. I still smacked it. I still had a black eye, but I should have connected with the pavement a lot harder on my head than I did. So I know God protected me in that fall. That was very obvious. I know he allowed that fall. That fall was the catalyst to change my entire life. I started listening to God. He started telling me I needed to tell my story. I needed to stop hiding. I needed to get out of my comfort zone and out of my box and start doing his will and not my will. So I was off work for a good almost 3 months before I could even go into the office to start doing things one-handed. I had a cast from my armpit to the end of my fingers. I also broke my little finger and actually laid it across the back of my hand. So I also had that was severely broken. So I was one-handed. But the part 2 of the humor of God is my elbow never healed correctly. So a year later, in February of 2020, I had to have elbow reconstruction surgery. That put me out of commission completely at work. Now I'm still on workman's comp. I'm still trying to manage the group home, which I clearly can't manage very well. So the other manager that was in the home with me is now still doing almost all of the managerial work. Then my mom suddenly gets ill in July of 19. I mean 18. I had the surgery in 2019. I'm sorry. So my mom gets sick in July of 2019, and she suddenly has to go in the hospital on life support, and I have to turn life support off 4 days later. My mom and I had an interesting relationship because she was my food police my entire life. She was the one that had me living my life with one foot in the grave since I was about 25 years old. I was always half dead. She always needed to hear from me first thing in the morning to ensure that I woke up that day and she wouldn't walk into my duplex and find me dead in bed. I spent the majority of my adult life under that. That was not a motivator for me to lose weight. That actually fed into my need to prove everyone wrong. And it was all selfish. So after my mom died, this huge weight lifted up off of my shoulders, and I finally felt some freedom. And God said, "You can tell your story now. I want you to write your book." And I ended up resigning from my job 1 month later, put my mom's house up for sale, and I'm living off of the proceeds of that house sale right now. It's a very small income, but I'm living off of that. And in that time, God opened the door for me to get into the weight loss program. He opened the door for me to get my surgery. He opened the door for me to get my total knee replacement, which I got October of 2021. I've lost 200 pounds. I've regained my mobility back. And in between all of that, God said, "Oh, by the way, now that you're writing your book, you're going to speak." And of course, I was like, "No, I'm not, God. Are you crazy? No, I'm an introvert. Remember, you made me an introvert. I'm not speaking." And he's like, "Yes, you are." So I have now gone to speakers conferences. I'm in Mary R. Snyder's Activate course. I'll be going to Christian Communicators in July. So I'm learning to be a speaker. I'm stepping out of my boxes, out of my comfort zone. And once I said yes to God and I stopped fighting God's calling on my life, once I said yes, doors started flying open. My health returned, my mobility returned, my self-confidence returned, my love for life returned. I love life now. Absolutely love it. I am looking forward to getting active in many things. And then when I went to the Proclaim conference in North Carolina in February, and Proclaim conference is put on through Redemption Press, which
Okay, looks like we kind of froze up with Teresa. So, Teresa, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but we can't hear you. So, what I'm going to do is take a chance on something, and I'll use this. So, what I'm going to do is temporarily disconnect everybody and see if we can get her reconnected after that. And now she can probably hear me but can't see me. Teresa, if you could exit and come on back in, we'll try that. And we'll wait. In the meantime, we have plenty to talk about. If that's all we got from Teresa tonight, that was quite enough, wasn't it? What an incredible journey she has been on, and one that I hope she makes it back to the chat room or to the big screen up here. I'll use this time to make some announcements that I've been wanting to make. I've teased it a little bit. I've brought it up just as we could when we could. But next Tuesday, April the 12th, PJNet will be launching the podcast platform that, oddly enough, we started working on over a year and a half ago, but we never finished because I just never got the affirmation that it was going to make enough difference and so forth. But there's quite a story that I will save until April 13th. I want you to mark your calendar for April 13th. Star Airs will be appearing that night, and she will be the only one appearing, so that we'll have plenty of time to hear her story about, well, two stories really. But she was a major part of putting this in motion. And the way it's going to work, folks, is it's not going to be a podcast in the traditional sense that you think of a podcast. For example, when you think of a podcast, you think of something kind of like what we do here on PJNet with just without the video. Okay, and that would generally fit the mold of podcasting. Or perhaps outside of the Christian market, so to speak, you may think of some political talking heads, or experts in whatever theater of operation they're moving in, with these hour, 2 hour, 3 hour long episodes of just talk radio, so to speak. But this is going to be something different, and it's primarily aimed at Christian authors who are writing fiction. Now, it doesn't mean to the exclusion of anybody else, but nonetheless, that's going to. And guess what? We have Teresa back. Teresa, I don't know what happened, but it's working again, and it's good to have you back. We've heard so much that's been an encouragement thus far, and I think where you left off is shortly after your mother died, and you sold your house, and you're now embarking on another journey. But before we get into that other journey, I'm curious.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people probably realize they need to take off 20 pounds, and you can go with some determination and go lose 20 pounds, because that's a temporary thing. Whatever you have to go through to do that, but you lost 10 times that amount. This took a long time. What sustained you? I understand what started it. Okay, that event of falling and hurting yourself. I get where it started. I get where you're at today. That's a lot of time in between. How many times did you quit or think about quitting?
In the 6 months pre-op program, a lot, because it was hard. It's mental. I had to want to change the way I thought about food. I had to want to change my habits. I wanted to succeed so bad, but yet I was so afraid of failing. I was so afraid of not losing the required amount of weight to be qualified for surgery. But I also knew I didn't want to go on insulin. I would probably have to say that one thing kept me going up till my actual surgery, was the fact I did not want to transition to having to take insulin shots every day. And one thing about the gastric bypass surgery, something about that surgery actually takes away diabetes. I am now no longer diabetic. So I knew that going into that was going to happen. But one thing that kind of frustrates me about the bariatric surgery route is so many people will say to me, well, you took the easy way out. You had the weight loss surgery. You took the easy way out. No, weight loss surgery was not easy. It was not the easy way out. My life and my dietary restrictions are more so for the rest of my life than they will be for the average person. I have to eat really slow. I have to chew everything to applesauce consistency.
Yeah, right.
I never consume sugar ever again because my digestive system can't handle processed sugar anymore. So me choosing surgery was not an easy choice, in the sense that I knew this was for life. There was no going back. This was for life.
Right.
That also was a motivator for me, because I knew I couldn't use food the way I used to use food. Physically, my body would rebel if I tried to use food the way I used food all of my life for coping. So it was a double fold, but this was not the easy way to lose the weight by far. But don't regret it. I absolutely love that I had it. I love that I lost the weight. I wish I had done it sooner. When I think about all the years that I lost by being rebellious and choosing to do things my own way and trying to prove everybody wrong, when there really was nothing to prove. People were trying to help me, and I didn't see it as help. I saw it as I didn't measure up to them or I was doing something wrong, and I viewed it all incorrectly. So it all boils down to the mental. You've
Hmm.
got to get the mind right before anything else in your life will follow, whether it's physically or spiritually.
And partly as a result of losing this weight, your self esteem, your confidence, and that has led you on this new journey
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
going to take you. It's kind of scary. Going to take you across the country to a new place.
Uh-huh. Yeah. The journey began when the Redemption Press put out their very first in person conference. And I was like, yay, they're going to do in person conference. Redemption Press is out of Washington. So I thought, oh, that's close. I can drive there. Well, no, the conference was actually in Concord, North Carolina. I'd already told God I was going. I've never flown before. I'd never been on an airplane, never bought plane tickets, never flown. So I fly by myself alone to North Carolina in February. Now, because I didn't know anything about air flights and layovers and airports, I thought, well, I want to have my layover in the same airport. Well, when I bought the tickets, my option to have the same layover in the same airport going and coming back home was DFW.
Hmm.
I didn't understand how big DFW was. I had a 45-minute layover both directions. Only God got me on those planes because I landed going home. I went from Charlotte, North Carolina to DFW, landed in Terminal A. My next flight was taking off in Terminal D to Portland.
Hmm.
I didn't realize how far Terminal D was from Terminal A.
Hmm.
And I needed wheelchair assistance because I was 3 months post knee replacement. So I partway was wheelchair, partway was their motorized golf cart things there. I made it on the flight with me and one other man getting on the plane before they closed boarding. That's how close it was, but God ensured I got on that flight. Lesson learned, long layovers are necessary. I learned the hard way, but I survived it, and I refused to let any of that to take my joy away from the trip. So when I got back home, God just said east. Well, I'm still thinking tiny. I'm still thinking Oregon, Washington. He's going to move me out of my hometown, Oregon, Washington. I already knew I was going to be close to the coast. But when he said east, I'm like, the ocean isn't east. Then he told me North Carolina. And then after I got to thinking about it, going, well, yeah, because I had such peace in North Carolina. I enjoyed my time in North Carolina. So it made sense. There's so many writing conference opportunities up in that area. There's speaker conference opportunities up in that area. I'd probably say 75% of my Facebook friends that are writers and speakers live on the East Coast and
Hmm.
up in that area.
All right.
So of course God's moving me there. So then I was like, okay, how am I going to get there, Lord? I live on $1,500 a month. I've got to find a place to live from Oregon to North Carolina. How am I going to do that? You told me you told me east, you told me North Carolina, so start opening doors. And I just let God take over. I quit trying to do things myself. Then I had 3 people in the same day send me a link to apartmentlife.org and said, check them out. So I checked them out and I applied for a 55 plus community apartment complex to be a lifestyle events coordinator. And it comes with an apartment. So I've already done my first interview, which was a phone interview. On Monday, I have my second interview, which is a video interview. And I have total peace about this interview. I have total peace about moving to North Carolina. And I've never had peace like this in my life ever. So I know this is the hand of God and all the doors he's opening. And I know it all boils down to me saying yes back in 2018 after my fall. And I just look back and chuckle at God's sense of humor. He had to have me fall and get hurt to get my attention to
Well,
stop
he
trying to do everything my way.
he tried to get your attention the easy way, but
Oh my goodness. Yes.
yeah,
I look back and I think of all the things he tried to get my attention with and I blew him off.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Teresa, an interesting journey, and you know what? Hopefully, there'll be many more journeys for you
Oh yeah.
because you are a journeyer, and your best days are probably in front of you. And
Oh, yes, they are.
now I can't help but wonder that someone might see this, be watching it now live or maybe recorded. They may see this in 5 years and they're overweight and they say, well, I just can't see myself doing that. I just can't do that. What would you
Been there,
say?
done that. Um, I would say do it for yourself. You've got to do it for yourself. Don't lose the weight for another person or for a job or for an opportunity. Do it for you because you are God's temple, and God has called us to treat our temples well so we can do his work and his calling. So you got to get in the mindset of you need to want to do it for yourself and for God, so God can use you to the fullest. And once you get that mindset to where you're doing it for yourself, what anything anybody else says will no longer bother you or be a deterrent. It won't rub you the wrong way because your focus has changed. Your focus has changed on bettering yourself for God. And that's what it took for me. It is I had to want it for myself.
You're absolutely right. If you are doing it to gain the approval or affirmation of others, you're probably motivated for the wrong reason. For me, it was different. Uh, there are some similarities, but I lost 95 pounds in 90 days. And what motivated me is a trip to the doctor. And he told me that I wouldn't live 2 years.
Mm.
I was 48 years old at the time. And I firmly, I kind of got in his face without being well, here's what I told him. I said, Doctor, you are not the final authority on this matter. I will do what you prescribe, and I'm going to get myself out of it. I did it to prove him wrong. So if that's what it takes to motivate you folks, I think your story underscores a message that I pound as often as I can when the opportunity arises. This is true in losing weight, but it's true in so many areas of our life. And here's the truth, as I see it. The less you do, the less you can do.
Yep.
The more you do, the more you can do.
Mm-hmm.
There is only one person on this planet that can turn that around. You
Yep.
are in, excuse me, absolute and sovereign control over that area of your life.
Yeah, it's all
So
about choice.
there's so many other benefits, folks, but the just reclaiming the self confidence and self esteem that is already in there, but it has been smothered by so many things out there,
Mm-hmm.
and we compensate, and we go after those things that don't actually bring happiness. But folks, we try to manipulate our circumstances to be favorable, seeking that joy, that contentment, that happiness. Well, folks, change, you've heard tonight from Teresa. You've said it well, my sister. And I'll say it again on my own behalf. Change has to come from within to be lasting.
Mm-hmm.
Change has to come from within to be lasting. Permanent change. Folks, we can't manage our sin. We can't. We can try, but what
And we
we'll get is very tired.
Yeah.
What we can do is strengthen our heart muscle for God. Increase your love for God. As the deer panteth for the water, desire God. And as you do that, the sin management just kind of takes care of itself. It becomes just, it's as that song said, the things of the earth grow strangely dim. They're still there. They're
Mm-hmm.
still there. but they grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. Folks, that glory, that grace is in each one of us. It is our choice to nurture it. Teresa, what an amazing story. I hope that God just pours blessings on you beyond your wildest expectations. And I hope that as He does, that you will be an inspiration to others. You've come a long way, baby.
Yeah.
I am really proud of you. Thanks for sharing your story, and I hope that we'll see you more often and regularly. And when you get ready to move, you just let us know where you're landing, so we'll know where to find you. Okay?
Okay, I sure will.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you, Teresa Moyer, right here on pjnet.tv. I want to say a special thanks to those of you in our chat room. I also see we have what appears to be a first-time visitor in our chat room. Irene, if you are, well, welcome. Just welcome. All of you are welcome, and you all are such an important part of the PJNet family. This is a team, folks. This isn't about two people, one there and one here, okay? We are a team. We are a family. Our mission is to provide a platform for everyday Christians to share their walk with Christ. Yes, every one of us has a story to tell, and we actually have a commandment to share the gospel, the good news, and to make disciples. You say, I'm afraid to do that. Well, here's what I would say. You're going to have to challenge yourself. Here's how I do it. I ask myself two questions. First question is, what is the boldest thing that you've ever done for the kingdom of Jesus Christ? I hope that is not too hard to answer. But regardless, the second question is, how long ago was that? If we're going to make disciples, we can't let ourselves be satisfied with either answer.